Margaret Carla. My question also pertains to the live event sector, so you'll have to excuse me, Minister, but I'm going to ask it again and maybe elaborate on some of the further issues in the following questions. So to ask the Minister for Social Protection if her attention has been drawn to calls from the live event sector to reinstate the pandemic unemployment payment at a full rate per week for these workers in view of the fact that the sector is closed and dramatically reduced under the public health advice.
Thank you, Deputy Minister.
And thank you, Deputy Gannon, for raising this. Of the approximately 206,000 people in receipt of the pandemic unemployment payment, some 5,900, or 2.8%, are members of the arts, entertainment and recreation sector. This represents a 58% reduction from 14,200 claimants in that sector at the peak in May. This reduction in the numbers of people in receipt of PUP is in line with reductions seen in other sectors and indicates that some people working in the sector have been able to return to work as the public health restrictions were relaxed. Having said this, I am acutely aware that many workers in the live events sector are still reliant on PUP, and that two factors in particular distinguish the challenges faced by workers in that sector. First, the performing arts sector is still more heavily restricted than most other sectors, and second, working patterns in the performing arts sector, which tend to be gig-based, do not lend themselves to a clear delineation between employed and unemployed, and that's why we frequently hear of workers in the sector being between jobs. In recognition of these issues, I met with representatives of the sector and clarified a number of points for them, including that taking up occasional or intermittent work does not affect a worker's entitlement to receipt of the PUP. This clarification has been welcomed by them. A dedicated contact service has also been established to enable workers from the sectors clarify their individual entitlements. The Government has decided that from the 17th of September, the PUP payment will be paid at 3 rates linked to prior earnings, and these rate changes are necessary to ensure the scheme is sustainable. Originally, the PUP payment was introduced as a flat rate payment of €350 in the expectation that it would last for 12 weeks. However, the impact of COVID has been deeper and longer than anyone anticipated back in early March, and in extending the payment for a full year until the end of March 2021, we have done so in a way that is both sustainable and fair. Linking the payment rate to pre-COVID earnings is a fair way of doing this.
Minister, in terms of pre-COVID earnings for somebody working in the live event sector, what they would be earning now towards the end of the summer and festival season is very different to what they would have been earning in February. But I just want to give you a little snapshot as a case study, for example. Say Electric Picnic would have been on around this time if it had been able to go ahead. 6.5 million value to Stradbally, 20 million value to County Laois as a whole, and 36 million value to Ireland. Minister, in the absence of actually appropriately funding this sector, are you confident that these events will be able to go ahead again next year, given how hard fought this live industry was? So potentially we'll have events going ahead next year, but if we're forcing those in that industry to seek other forms of employment and moving them out of that industry, well then we're going to be bringing in recruiters we're going to be bringing in the stage managers, the event holders from overseas, and that will be lost to our economy.
Minister?
Yeah, thank you, Deputy. Can I just say that we have been trying to be as fair as possible. PUP is extended until at least next April, and it also remains open for applications, and that's very important. COVID-19, as you say, is going to be with us for some time. The budget is in 3 weeks away, and I think we need to examine the next steps and the future of PUP as part of the budgetary process. It could well be that we may need to keep PUP open for much longer than we expected, and that makes it all the more important that the rates of payment are sustainable. And this was originally supposed to be a temporary 12-week payment, I said. It's now going to run for at least a year, and as I say, it may be that we need to extend it even further. And just to bear in mind that we have gone from a budget surplus in February to a deficit of over €20 billion. Now that's unprecedented, but it was absolutely necessary to protect people through this pandemic. We are borrowing, but even I know it's at low interest rates, but there's no such thing as free money, and of course we still have to pay it back.
Thank you, Minister.
Okay, I'll answer the rest next.
Minister, I don't doubt for a second you're endeavouring to be as fair as possible, but I suppose What we're question is, are we being kind of as fluid or as malleable as possible in terms of the sector protecting particular sectors? And this particular sector is more vulnerable than most, which is why the calls for the increase in the payment, particularly targeted at sectors such as this, is really important. In addition to my question about fairness, there are parts of the performing arts who have access to funding from the Arts Council, and they have other forms of funding in terms of this sector doesn't have access to that, but both of them are dependent on each other. So that's not really fair in that context. If the one element of the performing arts can access funding through the Arts Council, and yet an industry which is totally reliant upon it in terms of the live entertainment sector, the stage managers, all the people that make it possible are excluded from that funding. I fully appreciate your endeavouring to be fair, but I think we can be a little bit better in terms of being malleable. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, in terms of the sector, as I said, I do understand the difficulties they're facing, but I have, the department in terms of the pandemic unemployment payment has always applied a common sense approach to the genuinely seeking work condition. And can I just be very clear here? If you are waiting for your job to come back, we are not expecting you to be looking for work. But if you have permanently lost your job, we're here to help you, and that's what we want to do. And I know that there was some, people were wondering, can I do a gig, or can I not do it? Will it impact my payment? But what I would say is that you can do occasional, but not regular work. And it won't, it won't affect your payment. You can continue to get your pandemic unemployment payment. But what I'm saying here is occasional, not regular. And I have, the staff in the Intrio offices will deal with people on an individual basis, and we're here to be as helpful as we can. And I just want to make that clear. We're not here not to help people and not support them when they need it, but we wanted to have it as targeted and as fair as possible.
Thank you very much.